Hello and a warm welcome to you as we begin Search for Truth, your Bible teaching programme with Brian Johnston. Many thanks for joining me. In this series of talks called WEIRD, that's W-E-I-R-D, which is an acronym which will be explained at the end of this 8-part series, we're looking at how our Western society got its values and the ideals and morals which we treasure today. We're halfway through this topic now with week 4, and the subject this time is consent. We hear a lot about the opposite of consent being expressed in so-called entertainment in the media. The opposite of consent, of course, is physical domination, bullying, coercion, domestic violence, war, rape, robbery, etc. But fortunately, we're not going to be considering those things. Instead, we'll go to Brian now to look at the subject of consent. And that's, of course, if you agree. Here's Brian.
Thanks, John. We take it for granted in Western society that the powerful have no right to force themselves on others. But are we aware that this distinctive outlook of the West has its roots in Christianity? Safeguarding of children and vulnerable adults has become a major topic. And that's for the reason that consent is shaped by systems of power. Power imbalance is inescapable in human relationships, whether the imbalance arises from differences in knowledge and expertise, or economic or social power, such as gender or race. Imagine yourself in a doctor's office, presented with options that might predict, diagnose, or treat a medical condition. Most likely, you would ask for the doctor's opinion about which option is best for you, since you are unlikely to be an expert in that condition or know enough medical terminology to determine your best course of treatment. Isn't that, after all, why you've gone to see the doctor in the first place? One study has revealed that medical patients had little recollection of their informed consent discussion. In fact, 69% admitted that they hadn't read the consent forms they signed. More generally, a younger or vulnerable person may not have enough experience or knowledge to understand any kind of agreement they enter into with someone else. The other, older party is likely to have more power than the younger. That is, there may be an agreement, but the law considers it exploitative because of the imbalance of power. In this study, we're going to think about the topic of consent. The UK's National Health Service says, consent to treatment means a person must give permission before they receive any type of medical treatment, test, or examination. More generally, it can be said that consent occurs when one person voluntarily agrees to the proposal or desires of another. It's common speech, but with specific definitions tailored to law, medicine, research, and sexual consent. Our Western society would say that consent is important for several reasons. It respects an individual's wishes and choices, ensuring that care and support align with their preferences. It would say that valid consent is foundational to individual rights, dignity, and respect. In data privacy, obtaining consent gives individuals genuine choice and control over how their own personal data is used. Consent reflects the right of individuals to determine what happens to their bodies, and it ensures individuals are treated with respect and autonomy. People request or give consent in everyday life. Understanding how consent operates depends upon the context. Consent is a taken-for-granted social practice involving interaction between at least two people. When we encounter a screen prompt on the internet, we read and consent to lengthy terms presented in small font. In a hospital, a doctor recites an informed consent script to a patient that discloses the risks, benefits, and alternatives of a procedure before that procedure takes place. A romantic partner might use facial expressions to signal willingness to engage in a form of intimacy. But as we said earlier, is it known that this distinctive outlook of the West has its roots in Christianity? We could say that it was 1 Corinthians chapter 7 that brought consent into the bedroom. Let's read the opening verses now. Now concerning the things about which you wrote, Paul says, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. But because of sexual immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each woman is to have her own husband. The husband must fulfill his duty to his wife, and likewise the wife also to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise the husband also does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Stop depriving one another, except by agreement for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer, and come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. And this I say by way of concession, not of command. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and the first 6 verses. Even when the translation we read begins with the wording of to touch, and in the following verse speaks of a husband having his wife, it soon becomes clear by the 3rd verse that this is talking about fulfilling one's marital duty towards one's spouse. In other words, the reference is to sexual relations within the marriage. To confirm that, we may read in a different translation. Reading now from the New International Version, the same text as before. It says, now for the matters you wrote about, it is good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman. But since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. That's just going over the first 3 verses in that different translation. Now that we've clarified the context being that of sexual intimacy within marriage, it's at this point that the Apostle Paul says the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise the husband also does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Stop depriving one another except by agreement. This is very clearly the language of consent. The time was, in much more ancient times, when the act of marriage was taken to bring with it the implied assumption of female consent to every sexual urge thereafter of the generally more powerful male partner. Ancient pagan gods were often portrayed as violent rapists in animal form. Now, in the West, and it may not be going too far to say effectively on the basis of this section of the Bible, we recognise such a thing as rape within a marriage if consent has not been given by one partner for marital relations at any particular time. The Apostle Paul here goes as far as saying temporary abstaining from marital relations should be by mutual consent. Today, in fact, society has, if anything, prized the value of consent too highly, for it has eclipsed the clear biblical context here that teaches that all sexual relations should be within a biblically defined marriage. Western society is moving to the view that the only precondition for sexual relations is consent. But the Bible here teaches that consent is first of all to be given within a marriage setting. But it's all about consent nonetheless. And that's the point of this study. Consent is something we value, even prize in the West. But it's biblical Christianity and not any ancient culture that has given us this.
Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will. Why just now, as in thy presence, have me I bow. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Wounded and weary, help me I pray. Power, oh power, surely is thine. Touch me and heal me, Savior divine. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Hold all my being, absolute sway. Fill with thy spirit, till all shall see Christ only always living in me.
If you'd like a transcript book of all these talks, you can download an online soft copy free of charge at churchesofgod.info/media. I'll repeat that, churchesofgod.info/media. If you prefer a hard copy book, please write and tell us and we'll post one out to you. Just ask for the book title Weird and be sure to tell us your postal address. Our postal address, if you prefer to use it, is Search for Truth, Hayes Press, The Barn, Flaxlands, Royal Wootton Bassett, Swindon, SN4 8DY, UK. If you prefer to use email, then our email address is sft@churchesofgod.info. That's sft@churchesofgod.info. Well, that's almost all we have for today, but thank you for the pleasure and privilege of your company. And I look forward to your friendship again next week, if you're able to join me. But until then, it's goodbye and very best wishes from Bible teacher Brian, producer David, our singers, and me, John. So, see you soon, and in the meantime, may God richly bless you.
Take my hands and let them go. The impulse of thy law. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. Take my voice and let it sing, Lord, hold it for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from thee. Take my silver and my gold, not a mite, Lord, I withhold. Take my intellect and use every part as thou shalt choose. Take